Whether you are a brand new teacher and you're trying to acquire all of the things to fill your classroom, or you're a veteran teacher who's just trying to pare things back a little bit because you've acquired things over the years, this video is going to share with you the essentials for every literacy teacher. It's that time of the year, whether you're trying to clean out your classroom or you're trying to fill your classroom, knowing the essentials for literacy instruction and what are those items that are really going to help to make your lessons engaging and effective are really important. Because let's just be honest, with every turn of a catalog or every look on Pinterest or some website online, they are always trying to sell you things. And knowing which things are actually going to work can help save you a lot of money. So in this video, I'm sharing with you some of those literacy teacher essentials that can help to make those lessons engaging and fun, but also make them incredibly effective. These are going to be items that you would want to have for your students so that they can manipulate, they can be able to explore and understand all of the literacy concepts that you might be teaching over the year. And these are going to be fairly pared back because they are the essentials. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't grow from there. You can't add more items. Please do, but you don't necessarily have to have all the things in order to have an effective lesson. So I'm sharing with you the items that are evidence-based, research-based, that I know that they work inside of your classroom, and they will definitely work to engage and excite your students for teaching literacy. Okay, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to go ahead and start jumping in to some of those essentials. So the first item is one that every teacher should have, no matter if you're even a literacy teacher. Every teacher should have these in their classrooms, and that's the whiteboard. Whiteboards are really effective inside of classrooms. Whenever I do any form of whiteboard practice, whether it's students creating words, whether it's writing down sentences, or just participating in some form of a game, students love whiteboard practice. There's just something about it that just makes the lesson really exciting. And you can utilize these inside of your whole group and your small group lessons. So it's really nice to be able to have them in both locations. Now, I'm going to leave some links to all of the resources that I'm talking about in the description. That way you can go and see the items that I have used inside of my classroom. But along with these, I typically try to give students some form of an eraser to go along with it. Now, you don't have to do the erasers. You can certainly just do a little felt pad. That way they can be able to wipe off their boards at the end of the day. But these are always really nice to have. And a lot of the kits that you can find on Amazon come with the whiteboards, the erasers, and also an Expo marker. Well, maybe not Expo brand, but a dry erase marker. So having these items inside of students' desks so that they can take them out, whether they're working on some form of an independent practice, whether they need to bring them to your whole group lesson, but then also having them inside of your small group area is really nice. I will say that if you are somebody who is like, but I have to get whiteboards and I also have to get like clipboards for when my students are working around the room, that's not necessary, because all you need to do is give them some form of a clip. When students have a clip, they can clip on any paper to their whiteboards. That way they can just work around the room and be able to have a hard surface to work on. So if you are trying to debate whether to do the whiteboards or the clipboards, I say go whiteboards through and through. Clipboards are really hard to be able to organize and keep them in a space. They clip, and students sometimes can get they get hurt on those every once in a while. So I highly recommend just doing a whiteboard, having these in their desks, and then giving them that little binder clip so that they can clip down any papers that they are going to be working on around your classroom. Now, this next item, you're probably going to think, wait a second, how is this any different than a whiteboard? And that is the pocket sleeves. So these are the dry erase pocket sleeves that you can buy. They come in different colors. I purchased all black, just a set of like 30 of them that I can utilize inside of the classroom and also now when I'm doing presentations with teachers. And what I like about having these is that you can utilize different graphic organizers inside of them. Now, the only thing here with the whiteboard is that there's no graphic organizers. There's nothing for them to be able to organize information on. This is just them being able to draw it on their own. And if you've ever seen 3rd and 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th graders trying to draw a Venn diagram, it's not pretty. Having an area where you can just insert some different graphic organizers for students to utilize is really helpful. And these are great to be able to keep because if you don't want to go the whiteboard route, you can just put a white piece of cardstock in the very back. So students will have this area as a whiteboard, but then they can have it as graphic organizers on the other side. Now, I typically enjoyed using these within my small group area. Sometimes I would use them as whole group, but this was primarily my my small group materials list. And again, they can use them as whiteboards, but you can easily change out any of the graphic organizers. A lot of the times I'd keep those graphic organizers in there and I would just overlap them because it was pretty easy to be able to switch those out. What I also like about this set that I have is that they clean really, really well. I don't know about you, but I am really particular about whiteboards and having things get cleaned off well. So if you're utilizing a black Expo or dry erase marker, you're going to have no issues whatsoever getting these cleaned. I would not try putting these with colored dry erase markers because they just never work for me. They are not my favorite to be able to use. They don't clean well. They always leave some form of a residue. So I personally just recommend using the black dry erase. So these are really great to have handy, especially if you are wanting them to look for information. You can have them underlining things. It's just really nice, especially if you have articles that you want to use inside of the classroom, which this is something that I have done, but you have articles that you want to use in the classroom. You don't necessarily want them to mess them up, but you also don't want to spend the money and the time to laminate them. You can put those articles inside of these sleeves, have students be able to use it and read it and be able to kind of annotate around the text, and then you can take those back and utilize them for next year. Saves you paper and printing and all the things. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for how you can utilize those pocket sleeves. So I shared in a recent video about literacy kits that I was utilizing for a presentation to help support developing literacy in younger students. Now, these are not just for younger students, and they can absolutely benefit your older learners for 3rd through 6th grade, especially if you have those struggling readers inside of your classroom. And so I created something that's called a Lit Kit, and this is one of the form of the literacy kits that I have created. And this version has lots of little items on the inside. Now, I don't use these for whole group. I primarily use these in small group because not all of my learners, especially if you are in the 4th and 5th grade realm, are going to need any of these resources. However, they're again going to be really beneficial for those struggling readers if you need to start to make things more concrete for them and teach them explicit phonics instruction. So I'm going to switch over this view. Let's take a look at what's inside. So this is just a Ziploc bag that holds all of the materials. You can certainly do this for your students. I did it in a Ziploc bag to make it easy for me to take it from one professional development to the next. If I was doing this in the classroom, I would probably just use a pencil box. It makes it a little bit easier. Students can be able to take the materials out and look through the items easier in the classroom, whereas here they would have to pull everything out of the bag, which doesn't make it as easy to use. So I would have all these materials inside of some form of a pencil box, but let's talk through what all these things are. So the first thing that I have are going to be Unifix cubes. Now you don't need to have this many Unifix cubes, but these are great for listening to sounds and making sounds more concrete. So you don't necessarily have to have these for students. If you had this as a teacher as just one set to have them blend sounds together, I think that would be perfectly acceptable. So essentially you would have it on your finger, you would tap. So if I'm tapping here, you can kind of see I would tap above. That way you can see where my finger is pointing. And I would say, b, a, t. Then you would blend those sounds for me. And so that just gives students a visual for being able to almost quote unquote see those sounds without actually seeing the graphemes, which are the letters. Then I have a very small mirror. Again, I'll link all of these in there. Just purchased these mirrors, but you can see here it just has a cover for it, which makes it really easy. But what's nice about these is that students are then able to look at the manner of articulation. So what is happening with their teeth, their tongue, their lips, and knowing how to create a sounds effectively. The other items that I have here, these are going to be magnetic bingo markers. Now with the magnetic bingo markers, this is also for sounds. And what you would do, and I'm going to take out my pocket chart over here, is you would give them a word and they would map it. So if I said the word is truck, what's the word? Truck. What are the sounds? T, k. What's the word? Truck. So it allows them to be able to map those sounds out, but then blend it. And what's nice that you have a magnetic wand that goes with it, which these are kind of in some of those science kits. They could blend all of those sounds together. Now, at some point, you would start to attach graphemes and then you would have them rewrite that word there. But that gives you an idea of how these are utilized. Now, if you're doing some form of a pattern, you would just keep giving them words. They would start writing them down and they would start to circle the patterns between them. So if I was doing the word play, I would go p, l, a. And if I was doing the word stray, s, t, a. So I could say stray and then play. So you could have them practice with being able to map it, tap it, map it, zap it. That's kind of the format for this one. Now, the other one that we have are going to be these felt pads. What I like about the felt pads is that it just helps to make sounds really observable. And it's the same as this. You certainly don't have to have these, but these are nice to be able to utilize. So what you would do is say p, l, a, and then I would say, okay, take the p and the l away and have st, a, st, a, stray. And so you would hear and see those sounds and be able to manipulate them. So these are all of the resources in there. If I had to pick between the ones that you absolutely would have to have, I would say to have the magnetic bingo markers and have the mirror and the wand to go with it. Now, if you don't want to have the wand to go with it, that's totally fine, but it is something that the kids really, really enjoy. But these would be the ones that I would highly recommend above everything else. One of the things that I did forget to mention is that with the page pockets, what you could do is just give students a little felt pad and they could insert the little felt pad inside of that pocket to be able to store it there. That way they have something to be able to erase it with if you don't have some form of an eraser. But this is a great storage option. It does not mess anything up. All of mine have been like this for over a year now, and none of them have been damaged for having some form of little felt pad inside of it. Now, the next item is not necessarily a material, it's more of an organization system, mainly because when you have so many kids and so many different resources, it's really hard to organize things. And so what I recommend is purchasing these types of kits from Michaels. I get all of my stuff from Michaels, and hopefully you can use a coupon for it as well. But these little kits, I think, are typically made for jewelry, and the dividers can come out so that way you can manipulate them. Now, I utilize these in small group. I did not use them in whole group, and it mainly kept all of my letters secure. And so when I wanted students to be able to work with letters and build words, I would move those letters into a new compartment. And so they knew which letters to mess with and which letters to not mess with, because sometimes that would take us absolutely forever in trying to organize all of the letters inside of the box. So let's take a little closer look at what is inside of this box. The size of the box, they're not really big. There's kind of the comparison to my hand itself, but they just have a little latch here that you would have to unlatch. Sometimes the kids would struggle with opening these up, but I would just go ahead and have them open and ready to go for them. And then on the inside, what I would do is I would have all of my letters, which if you are a Bridging Literacy Community member, you have access to all of the letter cards there, and we give you enough so that way when you're building words that have multiples of the same letter, you are able to have enough for every student. So I just printed these off, have them ready to go for my students. I put it on color paper, so they are not really thick. Again, just because of the amount of them, it just didn't seem feasible to make them so thick. And then when I had students that we were working on specific words or patterns, this little compartment right here would house all of the letters that they would need in order to complete that lesson. So they knew that they were taking those letters out. These were extras just in case I did not count these out correctly. And then they were able to manipulate words. So you can see we have the IE here, and we would build out various words together. So those would be in there. Inside of this as well, we would have a little felt pad for our dry erase boards, and then we also had some of the magnetic bingo markers. So this was one of the versions of my kits. If I was to say about putting in the magnetic one, they might actually fit. Let's give it a try actually right here in real time. So if I put the magnetic one here, it does fit perfectly. And then the only other thing would be figuring out this, which that could go right inside of here, and students can have their piece. So this is a great organizational system, as you can see here, of just being able to keep all of those materials in one place, but also having a way to be able to manage the items that you are going to be focusing on for that specific lesson to keep things snappy. Because that is the big thing, is that we want things to be snappy. We don't want students to feel as though the lesson is taking forever. So this is a great organizational system, and I highly recommend using it and having letters ready to go for your students. Now, even if you're a 6th grade teacher, please stay with me. I promise you there is a reason to the madness. But the next item that I recommend every single teacher has is a whisper phone. Now, these are not whisper phones that I purchased from a store. These are ones that my husband was able to make for me using just pipe from Lowe's. And then he was able to, just with a saw, cut them apart and then attach the curved piece here, that little elbow piece to it. And what I like about these is that students are able to hear themselves fluently. So if you have students who are practicing on any form of a fluency practice and you need them to be able to hear themselves, this is a great way to be able to do that. For any of your reluctant readers who don't necessarily like whisper reading or reading out loud, it's just an awkward thing for them. And so what I would often do is take out a whisper phone and allow them to be able to head around the room so that they can listen to themselves read. Now, what's nice about this, and if you've never tried a whisper phone, is that you can talk really, really softly, but you can hear yourself. When you speak, it goes through the pipe and you're able to hear yourself incredibly clearly, which kids are always in awe by how well you can hear yourself with this whisper phone. So you can easily make these. I wouldn't recommend for a 5th and 6th grade class to have these for every single one of your students. But if you are a 3rd grade teacher, you might want to try and invest in making some of these. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you ask them to cut up those pipes for you, they certainly will do that. I will leave all of the information as far as the sizing goes down in the description box. That way you can kind of replicate this exact same version. But I had a basket inside of my room that held all of my whisper phones, and students knew that when it was their independent reading time, or if they wanted to practice their fluency, they could always come and grab one of the phones. Okay, so the last thing that I would recommend every single literacy teacher have is going to be something that's more of a school supply, but it's not a school supply because of the fact that you need to have so many different colors. And that is going to be colored highlighters. So lots of different highlighters in various colors is huge for a reading and writing teacher. Why, you ask? Because you can have students locate different types of evidence. You can have them be able to analyze some form of a writing assignment that they were working on by highlighting the topic sentence, highlighting the details, highlighting the evidence, highlighting the closing sentence, and it just makes everything so much more visual for them. So I had a ton of different activities in which students were looking for information within a text, or they were highlighting to make sure that they had all of the parts for their writing assignment using the various colors. Now, this is one that I utilize for sessions. This may not be ideal to utilize with teachers, but they are really cute to kind of share though. So I am still going to put this in the description, but I cannot promise you that they're going to last you all year long. So instead, here's what I did as a classroom teacher. I had an all-purpose highlighter toolkit. Now I got these boxes, I believe these are the photo boxes from Michael's. I just put a cover of the all-purpose highlighter toolkit inside of it, and then they had the highlighters. So let me show you what that looks like inside. So you can see the cover itself is just a laminated template that I have, and then I just taped it on. I was not super fancy. You can see the tape there, and these have lasted me for a good 5 or 6 years. But then on the inside, I have multiple types of highlighters. Now, this is where things get a little bit different than just an average school supply, because having the various colors is really, really important. And so these are an older version of ones that I have utilized in the past, but we would have various types of assignments where students would have to identify different components. And so I did these in math. I also had these for reading, and then I had them for writing as well. And so students would use the color coding system in order to be able to analyze or identify those various parts of either their writing or their reading part. And these, again, have been highlighters that I have not had to switch out many times over the years. I would say they last me a good 3 or 4 years, depending on how often you're utilizing your highlighter toolkit. And it is well worth the investment of buying the different colored highlighters. And if you have school money or school funds, being able to purchase these different highlighters will be really beneficial. It's engaging for students. They always love going through and highlighting materials inside of their text. So highly recommend putting some of these toolkits together and keeping these in your classroom. Every time I would take out a highlighter toolkit with my students, they would get so excited because they wanted to be able to just make all their reading and writing incredibly colorful. Now, obviously colorful with a purpose, but they still really enjoyed it. I did not keep these at students' desks. I actually had them in a cabinet inside of my classroom. And so when it was time for us to have our highlighter toolkits, I would have a student just go grab them and easily pass them out because they were inside of this nicely compacted kit itself. So hopefully you have gotten some ideas and some things that you would like to start incorporating into your lessons for this year. I would love to know, are there any of these resources or materials that maybe you would like to add to? Is there something that I missed that you feel like is an absolute necessity? Now, we're not talking about like normal school supplies that you have to have. In fact, I do have a video that shares like all of the supplies that I would have as a literacy teacher during my time in the classroom. I will try to find that and put a link with it as well. But these are going to be more so, what are these items that are more hands-on, kind of concrete, that we want to make learning more engaging and active, and just fun for them, right? That's kind of the whole goal of all of these materials, but also make it in a way that they are actually able to learn the information and be able to retain that information for the long run. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to this. Leave your comments down below. I can't wait to hear what are some of those items that maybe you would add to this list of the literacy teacher essentials. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you have not already, and hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I upload a brand new video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.